thought that we were far north in Sweden, but we learned that it was fog and ice in London, so no...
Okay, Mr. Liddle, Chair of Policy Network and host of today's seminar on climate investment community.
Yes.
How would you summarize the discussion?
Well, I thought it was a very productive occasion. At Policy Network, we're very interested in climate change as one of the big challenges of our time. Rather like the Swedish think tank, you know, we're looking at quite a lot of these big challenges, and climate change is certainly one. And I think we do have to think about a new approach. It's clear that the ambitions for a global, legally binding agreement are really not going to happen in the foreseeable future. And therefore, it was very, very welcome that Alan Larsen led this discussion. I have a great regard for Alan Larsen. I came across him in Brussels when he went to Brussels, when Sweden joined the European Community and was Director General of Employment and Social Affairs. And he was one of the main intellectual inspirations for the new approach on employment and employment participation that Europe pursued through the Lisbon strategy. And I think similarly, Alan could do a similar job leading a team of experts on Europe's approach to climate change. And I think that there's a germ of very radical thinking in what we discussed today.
Mm. Mr. Giddens was quite hesitant or negative in the UK, the possibility of UK joining a community or being a part of this.
I don't think Tony Giddens was as negative as he sounded, okay. I think, which is often the case with Tony Giddens. I think what Tony Giddens was saying was that you have to be very careful in the UK context, but I'm sure this is also true in the Swedish context, of making any proposal which sounds as though you're proposing a European Union tax. That people will get very excited about sovereignty questions if you say the only way forward is a European Union carbon tax. But actually, I think there are different new ways into that, which into the same thing, which don't raise such sovereigntist objections. I think that the floor price in the European emissions trading scheme is one such way in, and I think that that a pact of national governments, between national governments, that this was what they were going to do because it was in their common interest, would be acceptable. So I think that Britain would be a very willing participant in this debate. I think it's just that you have to avoid these what we would call red rags to a bull.
Okay. The EU9 instead of a EU27 was talked about.
Yes.
Is that an opening?
Well, I think my own view is that, you know, there's always been in Europe that this idea of an enhanced cooperation between a group of the willing has been looked at in several fields. It is an interesting idea. It might work on climate change, but on the whole, when the politics have tended to work out, that people have said, no, we've got to do this all together. But I think it's worth talking about. I think it's worth demonstrating that there are a group of countries that want to make, you know, a new initiative, more rapid progress in this area. I suspect that the result of a group of countries resolving they wanted to make more rapid progress would be that everyone else says, oh, well, we want to be in this as well, so that you would end up with something at EU27. But the fact that you're willing to take the lead would have been the motive for change.
Being an English-based think tank, what is your suggestion to Global Challenge, to our think tank? What should be our next step?
Well, I think you've got to sell your ideas to a group of the most interested countries. And obviously Germany is key. That came out terribly strongly in the discussion today. Germany, you know, which in principle is very committed to tackling climate change, Germany has to think through a new approach. And I think that the French would follow as well. But I think Germany is the key, and I think that, you know, it's a good thing that this is coming from Sweden, because I think that this is an issue where Sweden is seen to have you know, to be a global leader on these environmental issues, seen to be a global leader. On the other hand, Sweden is not the most enthusiastic member state for EU integration, and I think that puts people like your think tank in quite a good position to have real influence, actually.
Okay, thank you.